So that's 12 o'clock. If we could make a start, please, Veronica.
Thank you, Billy Sawyers. Welcome to the meeting of the Pension Subcommittee and the Pension Board. I would ask that members do not admit any persons waiting in the lobby into the meeting. So I'll now have a roll call for members of Subcommittee and Board. Bailey Sawyers.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Black.
I'm present.
Councillor Rowe.
Present.
Bailey Keenan.
Present.
Councillor McHugh.
Present.
Councillor Crichton.
Present.
Now the Pension Board. Councillor Donaldson.
Present.
Councillor Duff. I'll mark Councillor Duff as absent. Kenny Dick has intimated apologies. Claire Shepherd.
Bill Duff's wanting to get into the meeting.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Duff, I'll just note that you are present in the meeting. Claire Shepherd doesn't appear to be in the meeting. Arthur Nichol.
Present, thanks.
Raymond Boyd. I'll mark Raymond as absent. And Michael Charlton. I'll mark Michael as absent as well. So now we'll go to the main agenda. Item 1, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? No? So we move to item 2, apologies. Can any further apologies be intimated in the chat function? Item 3, minute of previous meeting. This is for your approval.
Not seeing any comments. I'm taking that's approved.
So item 4, Tayside Pension Fund Risk Register. This item is for your approval.
Any queries on that, or is that Stephen, Councillor Rowe?
Thank you, Bailey Sawyers. Just a quick clarification. I presume that the changes to the items in the risk register are reflecting of the findings of the internal audit papers later on in the paper. Is that correct?
Claire, is that one for you?
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Rowan, for the question. The majority of the changes within the risk register are as a result of the resource constraints that we're experiencing currently.
Okay, that's helpful clarification. So we are expecting that to be largely short-term in nature then?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Arthur?
Yeah, it's kind of on the same subject. I take what Claire's saying, and you'll know, I'm not the only one that's raised in the past about the risk around pension administration and the issues to do with the other stuff to do with the administrative, the statutory days, etc. in the past, and to do with my view that we have this ongoing thing where the pension team is understaffed. I know there's been attempts to fill vacancies and stuff like that that have been part of the problem in the past, and that work's been done towards that. But I still continue to ask about whether we've got a big enough pension team that for our needs. If we constantly seem to be so close to deadlines and statutory limits all the time, I'd feel it'd be much better if we felt we were resourced in a way that we comfortably met our statutory limits, and that's maybe something that the board and the committee could look at and say, is the pension team itself well enough resourced in general, let alone the issues that we have intermittently with people leaving and having to be replaced, etc. Thanks.
Claire, if you want to comment on Arthur's queries.
Thank you, Arthur, for your question. So You're absolutely right. We do have some vacancies that we're carrying across the team, and we're working to backfill those. You'll also recall that we had Hyman Robertson, who carried out a recent review of the structure of the pension fund, and we're also working to implement those recommendations, with the priority being focused on the resource gaps and aligning ourselves with funds across Scotland in terms of the structure.
You okay with that, Arthur?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I take the point, and I think that's good that those involved in managing our resources are doing what they can to kind of do that as effectively as possible. But I think there's still some power in the gift of the board and committee to say, are the overall resources we're providing for them to work with sufficient, and do we think that maybe we should be looking at better resourcing it in general? That's my point to make. Thanks.
Okay. Jimmy?
Yeah, I'd like to support what Arthur's saying in that we've got £6 million. We can probably afford the right amount of staff if we are understaffed. And it does sound as though that we might be, given Claire's answer. But I was surprised at Claire's answer to Stephen Rome's question, because the increased likelihood in the residual risk register, all the increased likelihood categories match the audit tasks. So there must be some connection between the two, surely.
Claire?
Thank you, Councillor Black, for your question. Apologies if I wasn't articulating that. What I was trying to say was the majority of the reason for the increase to the likelihood within the risk register is a direct correlation with the resource constraints that we're having, but there is a link with the outputs from the internal audits by PwC, which is a direct consequence. So yes, it's a bit of both. Apologies if I wasn't clear, Councillor Rome.
Okay, with these comments, is that item approved? Okay, Veronica, please.
So we now move to item 5 on the agenda, Tayside Pension Fund internal audit reports, GDPR, the cloud and data quality.
Any comments on item 5? Not seeing anything, so I'm taking that as approval.
Yeah. Hello. I don't know why can you hear me?
We can hear you, Stuart. Can't see any hands up.
I don't know why
there you go.
Oh, it's come up now. Right. Could I ask, it's really referring to going back to the risk register, and it's specifically a question on the McLeod position. Could I ask here just how much in terms of staff time with the pension fund has implementing remedies taken up? How much is it a one-off? The backlog of most of the work being done, but with perhaps a bit more to come, and how much is it going to be an ongoing burden?
Claire, I don't know if you'll have all that detail to hand, or whether that's something that might be able to be circulated after the meeting, but...
Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, for the question. If agreeable, I would be happy to write to members after the committee with an answer to your question.
Okay, because if it's going to be, certainly if it's going to be an ongoing issue, not just one-off remedies, then, I think that factors into also the resource, fact implications that people have referred to earlier. Okay.
Okay, and with the assurance that Claire will circulate something after the meeting, can we agree that report, please?
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Jimmy.
Well, yeah. I think a number of the same items come up in a number of different reports today, and they're all kind of based around the PricewaterhouseCoopers internal audit reports. And so there are some issues. I'm just wondering, are we going to discuss things like the lack of the record of processing activity and the other things which Pricewaterhouse bring up? Because they come up in so many agenda items, or so it would appear anyway. It's not sure when we're going to, concentrate on them.
Okay, well, is there a specific question you've got at the moment? We'll see if we can deal with that.
Yeah, well, the ROPA, the record of processing activity, apparently the council doesn't have one. That means that the pension fund isn't fully compliant, and this has been picked up with the Pricewaterhouse internal audit report. So there's a number of other data protection things which they've highlighted. And as I say, it comes up in, I think, 3 or 4 reports all seem to cover the same ground. So we could start with the record of processing activity. How big a problem is that for us in terms of compliance with data protection legislation?
Claire, please.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Black, for the question. Within the findings of the report, the recommendation 1 outlines the details of the ROPA findings. And I think from our management response, we have agreed some further work in terms of refreshing and consolidating the existing data mapping. We do have data mapping. It might just mean that we need to do a bit more work to refresh that.
In terms of, I mean, it would appear we don't have this, and PricewaterhouseCoopers have highlighted it because the council doesn't seem to have it. I don't want to kind of do the council business here, but presumably that's a problem for the council too. So I don't know. It looks important, but you seem to be telling me that it's not.
I confirm it is important, Councillor Black, and it's something that we've agreed to pick up as part of the management actions. And obviously the responsibility does sit within the council as administering body, and we will look to consolidate the existing data mapping and become fully compliant with a centrally maintained ROPA.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Stephen, you've put your hand down, so Arthur, please.
Yeah, just following on from that, I think obviously I come from a software background, so the question that springs to my mind is that I take it this is in connection with the limitations of the software that we used for the pension fund and for its record maintenance. And I noticed there was a lot of other stuff. I can't remember if it was in the audit report or one, because I'm trying to find it now. There's lots of references to erroneous data and stuff like that. And it struck me as that there's clearly a weakness of validation in some of the in the computer system that allows quite what would be kind of schoolboy errors to be done. And I'm not blaming staff, because these are things that will happen given half a chance with the amount of data you're turning over. But you would expect the software to actually help you by validating, and doing some primitive validation on things like not letting dates that could never be the other side of each other be the other side of each other and things like this. And that validation, seems to be weak on the software that's being used. And I take it, is this being taken up with the software provider, and as well as the record of process, the record of case processing, etc., that I would expect to be inherent within any, like an audit trail being inherent in any computer system you're using that dealt with personal records and stuff like that. I'm assuming these are missing, but we're hopefully in dialogue with the provider to get them resolved. Is that what you're saying? Thanks.
Amanda, can I come to you for this, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that question up, Arthur. So for the purpose of the audit, we had to use 2 reports and merge them together to provide the data to PwC. Now, obviously, some of the information that's come back out of the audit is probably inconsistent with our own data, but we have the member reference number, and we'll, as a priority, we'll be going through and see where there is any inconsistencies. So we think it's mainly down to just the merging of the reports to be able to provide PwC with that information. We had to use a valuation report for that. We don't think there's an issue with our data. We just think it's the way the data had to be pulled to be able to provide it to PwC.
Okay, so you think those errors and dates and stuff like that were just to do with the merging process of these 2 reports rather than actually the data that was held on the system?
Yeah, we don't think it's the date it's held in the system, but we will have to go through all the error reports that have come out, which obviously takes a bit of time to go through to identify if there's been any issues. But we do believe on our initial investigations into it that it's more how the data has been put together for the report back to PwC.
That makes more sense, because it did seem quite primitive kind of validation that you would expect to be in any system that's worth its salt. So thanks for that. Cheers.
No problem.
Okay, and with these comments, is that report agreed? So moving on, please.
Thank you. So we now move to item 6, Tayside Pension Fund Internal Audit Annual Report 25-26. This report is for noting.
Any questions on this report? Not seeing anything, so I'm taking that as approval.
So we move to item 7, Pension Administration Performance, update to 31st of March 2026. This report is for noting.
Any questions on queries on item 7? Oops. Arthur. Oh, you're on mute, Arthur.
So I was just catching up after earlier contribution, but I take it that's the one that I was referring to earlier, where it gives you the statutory limits and our performance against them. Just to kind of note here the same that was noted before about that I believe that there's an issue there in terms of, I think we'd all be happier that if we were regularly well under these statutory limits rather than constantly being riding the shoulder of them, if you get my drift. So I think, yeah, that brings us back to the question about having better resource for the pension delivery team. Thanks.
Sure. I think that's been picked up earlier, but thanks for that. Okay, nothing else on item 7.
So we move to item 8, Statement of Investment Principles Review. This report is for noting.
Any questions or comments on item 8? Are you putting your hand up, or are you just scratching your ear?
I'm just looking to yes, I found it. Right, I'll tell you what it was. It's on page 31. And this is important because it also ties in with the opportunistic mandate later on. But on ESG, we state the Pension Board of 4th June 2018 report such and such affairs shows the current policy on environmental, social and corporate governance. Is that, I'm sure there must be something since June 2018. Yeah.
Claire?
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, for the question. I understand that that is the most up-to-date report that references the ESG.
Right.
I can check and
Obviously,
write back to members and
your
check, make sure that that's...
circumstances have altered, and probably in areas such as fossil fuels and so on, there may be different stresses and tilts going forward. But I would have thought it's something we do need to, certainly if it's what, almost exactly 8 years out of date, it hasn't been updated since then, it is something we've got to update on and do that fairly quickly. I don't know if there's general agreement.
I don't think there'd be a particular problem about bringing that back in due course, bearing in mind staff resources, of course.
No, I hear what's said in staff resources, and this is a real concern on one or two other things as well. But I do think that is entirely relevant if, you know, the actual position is from June 2018.
Okay. Hearing that. Arthur?
Yeah, just you know, following up. I think that, yeah, I know why the policy is dated when it is dated, but there have been a lot of developments and some questions that are being that are circulating that relate back to investment principles in relation to government policy, both at UK and the Scottish Government level, around the question of pension funds and investment, which, although they're not dictating to us how we should invest, are creating room for discussion around how we invest in relation to what's been said about that, and because of discussion at the SAB, etc., about what this means in terms of things like talking about local investment, etc. And we should maybe review the policy with the question about how do we feel it meets those questions that are circulating, and should it be revamped to kind of take those into consideration and look at those issues. I know there's a couple of the seminars that have been kicking about have looked at some of these issues as well, and it's perhaps some of these we can maybe look at. I think the one in the north, there's a seminar coming up in the northeast pension fund, which starts to talk about some of these issues, and maybe it'd be worth if we could maybe set aside some training or a seminar of our own for the board and committee to discuss some of the questions that are floating around this and try and update our policy based on that.
Yeah, I think we can deal with that. Stuart?
Yeah, just what Arthur's been saying, he kind of raises the more broader issue of training, and we do refer to in-house training, but training for trustees, it was something I raised, remember the St Andrews Conference, and I think that's a matter we want to consider in a while, and also on the, what Shona Robinson said at that conference. But I think also just to ask, I made a request a while back for a kind of an in-house development day. I think it would be good for trustees to actually meet one another face to face. It doesn't have to be the case for every meeting. I think we could build into that an element of training and current trends. I think that would be helpful. But I've been told resource constraints mean we're probably not going to get what was decided at St Andrews, any kind of feel on that until probably the next meeting. Is that right?
Claire?
That's correct, Councillor Donaldson. And I'll pick up your point around training, and we'll take that back and consider. Thank you.
Yeah, I do think it would be helpful for trustees to meet one another and just to share ideas. And it's much easier to do that face to face than online. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, taking these comments into account, is that item agreed? So moving on, please.
Item 9, funding strategy statement.
Any questions on item 9? Not seeing anything, so I'll take that up. Stuart?
Yeah, sorry. Again, on the actual aerial valuation, this is something, this triennial valuation comes up every 3 years. It's important. We're 15.7%, certainly employer contributions, I think, for most just now, and might have a bearing indeed on the next 3 years going forward. When are we going to get an indication? You state later this year. Is that usually about November, December, so we can, for setting budgets, we know what to set for the next 3 years?
Claire, please.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, for the question. In terms of the valuation, we are working through that, and we'll be happy to update members when we have confirmed dates.
Okay, that sounds as if it might be much more towards the later rather than sooner, yeah?
I'll confirm that as soon as possible. That's okay, Councillor Donaldson.
It would be helpful to get an indication. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Stuart. Not seeing any further comments in this report, so I'm taking that as approval. So moving on, please.
Thank you. We now move to item 10, Teesside Pension Fund Annual Governance and Governance Compliance Statement. These are for your approval.
Any questions on item 10? Not seeing anyone, so I'm taking that as approval.
So we now move to item 11. That's Teesside Pension. Sorry.
Claire, could I bring you in at this point, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, as you'll all be aware, we are required to submit the pension fund accounts in draft to our external auditors and publish the draft accounts on our website by the 30th of June 2026. Unfortunately, we've experienced a delay to the production of this year's draft accounts as a result of staff resource constraints, meaning we were unable to submit them today for your agreement as we had planned. Subject to receiving information today from external partners, we do, however, expect to finalise the draft accounts by tomorrow, and I would therefore ask you to note that a copy of the draft accounts will be sent to you tomorrow, and at the same time we will submit the accounts to our external auditors and publish them on our website in order to meet the required timescales. I have spoken to our external auditors and can confirm they are agreeable with this approach. I can also confirm to committee that once the audit concludes, we will submit the audited accounts at the September committee and board, where members will have the opportunity to scrutinise and ask questions of the accounts. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Members happy to agree to that proposition?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. So we'll
Thank you.
Oh, Arthur.
Just on the general governance, I appreciate what's been said there, Claire, about the accounts. Yeah. It's maybe just a topical place for me to raise the question about. I had heard that there's been a bit of discussion that there's an awful lot of admitted bodies leaving pension funds across Scotland, taking advantage of the current funding rates and cashing in. Have we had any experience of that in Teesside? I've not seen anything reported, but I was just curious, and I felt I should check just to see if there was any experience of that from any of the admitted bodies of that looking to leave the pension fund over the last short period. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Arthur. Amanda? Oh, you're on mute, Amanda.
Sorry, yeah, I'm happy to come in here, Arthur. It's not something that we've overall experienced. We did have 2 employers leave throughout the year, but not for those reasons. It was through obviously just leaving the scheme. And although we do get interest from employers, but we've not had anyone take up the exit valuations or proceed with it.
Thanks. Just as a side note, I have heard that some of the other pension funds were looking at their exit arrangements and tightening them up because they had a bit of concern about it being too easy for people to leave. I wonder if that's something that might be reviewed in terms of what our exit calculations and arrangements are for our fund.
Yeah, the regulations were updated for that, and we follow those regulations as well as the other funds. So it was an update to the regulations that did that.
Okay, sorry. No, the way I heard it was that some of the funds were actually looking at their own kind of tweaks to their exit conditions, but I wasn't sure what the scope was in terms of for doing that in an individual fund by fund basis. But I only heard that a couple of weeks ago, so I'll wait and maybe see if I get hold of it, what those other funds were doing, and maybe feed it back if I get more details. Thanks.
Okay, any further comments on that? No, take that as approval. So moving on, please.
Thank you, Convener. The following items are confidential. Can any members of the press or public please leave the meeting now? And I will also stop the recording of this meeting.